God and Other Delicacies has a weekly newsletter. If you'd like to subscribe, email me at godsdelicateshow@gmail.com and I'll put you on the list. Hello, everyone. Welcome to God and Other Delicacies. I'm Nicholas D'Augusto. Another week, another conversation about God. I can't wait. Let's get into it. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming Hopper Stone to the show. Hopper is a photographer with a vibrant and multidisciplined past. He began his career as a photojournalist, covering international crises in places like Somalia, the Soviet Union, and Cambodia. In 1997, he opted for a safer work environment and began shooting production stills for film and television. He's covered literally hundreds of projects, the least of which, quite possibly, was the film he and I met on in New Orleans, a film that was never officially released called Mardi Gras Spring Break. It doesn't hold up, but somehow my friendship with Hopper did. Welcome to the show, Hopper.
I was surprised. I didn't know you were going to actually mention that.
Oh, come on, I got it.
One of those projects I usually don't bring up to people who are involved.
It's terrible. But it was such a lovely experience to be in. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we had too much fun. It's part of the problem. We were in New Orleans and we were all young. But no, it was just a terror. I mean, the people that were in it were great,
yeah.
and it had on this, like, if you looked at the paper before we did it, you thought this could be good,
yeah.
And it was all right,
Yes.
but it didn't make it out, and you got to talk about that stuff because that stuff is what makes careers really fun.
Yes, and I also I've worked on some believe it or not, that is not the worst movie I've worked on.
Okay, all right.
Oh God, not even close.
Do you want to tell me which one is number one?
I would say it's a movie called Blood Surf. Tale about a couple of happy-go-lucky surfers and a giant saltwater crocodile.
And a giant saltwater crocodile.
Oh, okay, saltwater crocodiles are real.
Okay,
they're no joke. They're 18, 20 feet long. They are
Right.
crocodiles that live in the ocean, and they're vicious.
Right, okay.
A saltwater crocodile will fuck
Where
you
was
up.
this location in the movie location? Where was it set?
Amorphous tropics.
Okay.
But we shot 6 weeks in the Philippines.
Yeah, come on, that's amazing.
Oh my God, we had a blast. And a bunch of us actually who worked on that have come out at, like, our key grip is one of the top TV key grips in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Our visual effects supervisor has won a couple of Emmys.
Oh wow. Right.
I managed to do okay after that one.
Yeah?
That's
you've done fine.
It's not even a stoner movie. Like one of those sort of cult classes, like, dude, let's get baked and watch a really terrible movie. No, it's just
like there's no value in how bad it is. It's not even bad enough to be like what The Room, right? Is the classic
right. It's not like
one?
The Room or the Leprechaun movies. By the way, I worked on 2 of the Leprechaun movies.
Oh wow,
Leprechaun
exciting.
5 and Leprechaun 6.
Ooh.
Thank you very much.
How many were there total? Were 5 and 6 the last two?
Well, there were 6 with Warwick Davis, and apparently there was another one which I refuse to acknowledge because Warwick is no longer involved, and if Warwick's not the Leprechaun, then no.
Yes, that's not right. That's not right.
It's
those money grubbing assholes.
Exactly.
Couldn't they stop at 6?
That's exactly it. But yes, Leprechaun in the Hood, and then Leprechaun back to
Leprechaun
the Hood.
in the Hood?
Yeah, with Ice-T.
Oh, how amazing. Ice-T?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's good.
Yes, you should get him on this show because the world according to Ice-T is a fascinating place.
I'm not sure he'd be willing to come on my show at this point, but if you have a connection, a deep Leprechaun connection to Ice-T, I would love to get Ice-T on my show.
I'll get my guys on that.
Okay, man.
Yes.
So another thing I wanted to mention, actually, this is the time for mentioning fun idiosyncrasies. You are an expert scuba diver.
Yes, although
you're an instructor, aren't you?
I am.
Or you were at one time.
I was
you could
an instructor.
You could be if you got back into it a little bit or something.
I would have to just re-up some paperwork and probably do just some continuing education stuff. But yes, I learned how to dive in 1976.
Wow. So it was a passion early.
But yeah, back when it was like legitimately dangerous.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, it was like you were probably carrying like Volvos underneath, like.
Not everybody, let's put it this way, not everybody had a pressure gauge.
Yeah, okay.
You didn't always have a pressure gauge. You had what's called a J valve.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and you had to memorize the U.S. Navy dive table.
Wow.
Which of course was built for Navy SEALs. So people were getting bent right and left.
Oh, man.
And so finally Patty came up with her own tables and made it a significantly safer sport. And it's actually a ridiculously safe sport.
Yeah.
But I've as the career takes off, I've had less and less time. I used to dive. I was a volunteer at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach.
Oh, wow.
For 7 years.
Is that mean like you were cleaning and
Yep.
stuff like that?
Yep.
That's cool, man.
Once a week, go and you would clean, feed the fish,
Wow.
give presentations.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's
really
awesome.
fun. And then, work got busy and all that. I have not actually been in the water. I'm ashamed to say it has been 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I am nowhere near Hopper's level, but I've had like 25 dives or something, so I'm an advanced diver. I took my advanced courses,
Excellent.
which means that I'm just far outside of having been doing it enough that I always make mistakes still, but mostly I correct them very quickly.
Exactly.
Or the instructor can tell me something, I realize what I've done. But you've probably had, wouldn't you, how many hundreds of dives do you think you've done?
I stopped sort of officially logging, but I probably have 1,500 dives.
That is amazing.
Yeah, something along those lines.
1,500. It's so beautiful to be under the water. I want to do it more.
It is.
I
It is a peaceful place.
Yeah, it's so gorgeous. It's such a beautiful way to experience the world, man.
It is. And it is truly, it is wondrous. It really
For sure.
is. Like my last
stunning.
big amazing dive trip was on the Galapagos Islands.
Oh,
And
I want to do it obviously someday.
it's that thing where everybody builds something up and then your expectations get out of control. You're
Sure.
like, it couldn't possibly be. No, it really was just as awesome as everybody said it
That's
was.
amazing, man.
And of course, you're like, well, this is a once in a lifetime trip. And as soon as I was done with them, like, I need to do this again.
Have you ever been to Sipidon outside of? But have you heard of Sipidon?
Sure, yeah, it's in
That was
Malaysia,
one that
yeah.
somehow, because I was with the right buddies, we were pointed there through the good graces of my friends, and in a relatively early amount of dives, 25 dives or whatever, I have crossed off one of these like top 10 list places, and it was so extraordinary, man.
Yeah,
it
For
would
warm
be
water
too
diving.
boring to talk about it for everybody else, how beautiful it was, but it was so amazing.
Yeah, here for warm water diving, it's just one of the top places. I've actually become a real fan of cold water diving.
Oh, yeah? Cool.
I love diving in California. I think it's some of the best diving in the world, but it's cold.
Yeah, I got my advanced staff Catalina.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah, it is cold, but you get the full, you have your full thing, your full suit on. All right, man. Okay, we did that.
Yes.
So, the big, really difficult question: what did you have for breakfast?
Same thing I have every day: a protein shake and a handful of vitamins.
What is your protein shake of choice?
Do
Do you mix up the flavors?
It's chocolate.
Okay, I like chocolate. I'm into it too.
I've been doing a program, and this is not a plug for them, but it just you asked. I've been doing a program for just under 2 years called Isogenics.
Isogenics.
Isagenix. It's a little bit culty, but and yes, it's a multi-level marketing scheme and all that kind of stuff. But I'm in deep. I'm up to my neck in debt. but a lot of I actually don't do the business.
No. I'm just kidding.
I have no interest.
I like the idea of you being
Right.
like, they did take out one of my family members.
Yes,
it's been
and I do
a
owe them
difficult time.
and I owe them a kidney.
In fact, if anybody can help, this is a cry for help.
A lot of, as you know, you've worked on movies and stuff.
Sure,
Film
of
production
course.
is terrible for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like the hours are insane.
Right.
And what typically happens is you wrap anywhere between 12 and a 14-hour day, and you get off the clock, and you are starving.
Sure.
And you don't want to have a full meal because you got to get to sleep and all that, but you got to eat something, and so you end up microwaving a very bad choice.
Yeah.
So what? And I've been to a bunch of people I knew on film crews who've like lost weight and got into good health, and I'm like, all right, what did you do? And they're like, yes, from Isogenics. So basically, I don't want to call it a diet because a diet is like a restrictive thing. It's a change in how you eat. That's it. So basically, my daily intake of food consists of 2 protein shakes and 1 meal per day.
Oh, okay.
And that's it.
All right.
And I mean, a couple of snacks. They have you can get as deep as you want into the Isogenics thing. They have their own protein bars, which are legitimately good protein bars. They're not candy bars disguised as protein bars.
Right.
And you can do that, or I just eat a lot of almonds.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And I've lost about 40 pounds.
Wow.
In just
now this is why you can see you're a believer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is working for you.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
cool.
And then I, so I've been going to the gym,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But basically, and what's nice is that I don't have to think about 1 meal a day. So when I'm working on a movie, protein shake for breakfast, lunch at work, protein shake when I wrap, and there it is.
Yeah.
My wife started doing it too, so it's just easy.
Yeah.
And we just seriously have to worry about 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's great.
And
That's
it changes your relationship with food too. Like if my fork and knife meal isn't good, I get very pissy.
Oh yeah, I can
Because I
imagine.
only eat one meal.
Do you get to go kind of big on that meal?
It's whatever you want. I
Yeah.
mean, basically they say, one low glycemic, sensible
yeah.
meal, somewhere between 600 and 800 calories. Yeah, bullshit. I eat whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, right.
No, and I would probably get rid of that extra 15 pounds I want to get rid of if I was a little more strict about it.
Yeah.
But right now it's just, I will eat in this form for probably the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Because it's easy and, I was never on heavy medication, but I'm now on no medication.
Yeah.
Cholesterol's back to where
that's
it needs.
amazing.
Yeah, cholesterol's back to where it needs to be. Blood pressure's great, not pre-diabetic. All that. Although at one point I was pushing 250.
Jeez.
And I'm 5'10".
It's hard to imagine that.
Yeah, I was getting really big.
Yeah.
And, I could still lose another 15.
Yeah.
But if I hang out here, I'm fine.
Well, look.
So that's what I had for breakfast.
You're gorgeous whenever I see you.
Thank you.
You're particularly gorgeous now.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I dolled up just for you.
I know you did. All right, man. How and when were you introduced to the idea of God in your life?
Well, so as is typical, every kid, look, I'm Jewish, and that was just something my parents told me. Like, you're Jewish. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? They go, well, you don't get to celebrate Christmas, and you don't wear a cross like everybody else does
I like
at school.
that they started with, here's what you're not.
Yeah, you're Jewish. And it was just one of these sort of amorphous things. Like, you're a little different from everybody else, and you're going to catch a lot of shit about it from people. That's just part of being Jewish. And there are, all right, before we start, everything I'm going to tell you about being Jewish is both right and wrong. That's just the way, we have this expression, 2 Jews, 3 opinions.
Oh,
so I'm going to say
lovely.
things that in some senses are right, and then someone will go, well, it's not really that way.
Yes.
It can be looked at this way as well. So I'm going to say there are 3 kinds of Jews, which is not actually true, but that's sort of the conventional wisdom. Reform, conservative, and Orthodox.
Yes.
So that those are the big 3. If we're going in the world of taxonomy, those are the kingdom, or those are the phyla of. If Jew is the kingdom,
yes,
then the phyla are are Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. Then you can get into family, class, order, genus, species.
Okay, very good.
So, my father had a really strict Orthodox upbringing, which he rejected with every fiber of his being the second that he could.
So the Orthodox, that means we're talking dress wear, we're talking women
not
are
Haredi. He was not Hasidic.
Okay.
But I don't know if he ever wore tzitzim, which are the fringes that people wear all day. I don't know if he ever did that.
Okay.
But he had to study the Talmud. He had to go to Shabbat services. They kept kosher at home, all that stuff, and he rejected that as soon as he could. Just wasn't his thing.
How early, when he would tell you this, because obviously he's relaying to you that as a young man he was going against this.
No,
I
I didn't find that out till years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's we'll circle back to my dad, because he actually plays a role in how I sort of got back into being Jewish.
Okay, good.
In a weirdly indirect way.
Okay, good.
But yeah, it was weird because my father, so basically my brother and I, had what I would call a stereotypically shitty Reform upbringing. So my parents could say, yeah, we're sending him to a synagogue, but it was a really terrible synagogue.
What does that, yeah, tell me.
In that it was very much by rote, and we never went to Friday night services, or Saturday. We never went to Sabbath services. It was just, well, you do this because that's what you're supposed to do. And we knew that there were people who kept kosher, but we didn't have to keep kosher. And we used to refer to the Orthodox as the Meshuggah from, which means crazy Orthodox.
Okay.
Like the ones who won't drive on Sabbath.
Right.
So, stuff like that.
Right.
And anybody who went to Daily Minyan was like, oh, no, that's just weird. And it was this weird.
So you were a part of a synagogue that you never went to?
We never went to. I wanted to go to Sunday school.
Right. Okay. So Sunday school, but when you say Sunday school, it's Sunday.
It's religious education.
But it's Jewish religious education.
It's Jewish religious
Sundays.
education on Sundays.
Okay.
So I had to go to Sunday school, where basically they would tell us the same stories, which all boil down to a version of they hated us, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. That's most major Jewish holidays are a variation of that theme.
Yes.
Let's hear the same stories over and over again. But nothing was ever put into context, like ever. And I was like, okay. So, for example, the end of your religious education, at least in Reform world, is referred to, and it's after your bar mitzvah, is referred to as your confirmation. And I remember when I had our confirmation, everybody was supposed to write a speech about the culmination of their religious education. And I'm like, I got nothing. I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. And I was one of the few people who actually could still sort of read Hebrew and not be afraid of it. And part of that service was you had to read the Torah. And someone said, is anybody going to read the Torah? And I just shot my hand up. I'd be, yep, I'll do it. I'll learn another Torah portion, not a problem. So, and again, it's...
So that's how you won your good graces on not having the speech.
Not having to write a speech. If you read the Torah, you have to write a speech. So I've read the Torah twice in my life.
Wow.
At my bar mitzvah. And
how long does it take to read the Torah?
But, I mean, well, to learn the portion, it's like you had to basically memorize it because, so there's, in written Hebrew, there are these little dots and dashes that go under the letters that are the vowels. The Torah does not have vowels in it. So you have to be able to read it without the vowels. So you basically practice it with the vowels, and it gets to the point where you almost have it memorized, and then the letters become sort of cues.
Yeah.
And I mean, a typical Torah portion is, it's a couple of minutes. I mean, it's only a few paragraphs.
Right, okay. So
and,
when you say you've read the Torah twice in your life.
Oh, no, I meant I've read two Torah portions.
Two Torah portions in front of a congregation.
Exactly.
You've been up on stage presenting this.
Correct.
For the service.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's referred to as the Parsha, which is the weekly Torah portion.
Okay. And how many presenters at every Torah portion? Is there one a service?
Just one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
There are, there's what is referred to as an aliyah, which is someone who comes up with you and said there are because we have a prayer for everything, just like they say in Fiddler on the Roof. We have a prayer for everything.
Yeah.
There's the prayer before you read. There's the prayer after you read, and they will actually divide that into. So they divide a Torah portion actually into three parts. So they have three aliyahs during that. So, for example, I went to shul this morning, and I hadn't been there in a long time, so they gave me the first aliyah, which is kind of a
Did you go because you were coming in today? Was that were you like partly inspired because you were coming in today? Wow,
I had the time because I blew off the gym to do this, and I'm like, I kind of have time to go to shul. I haven't been in a long time, and I wanted to bring a prayer book with me, which I'm holding here, just in case you ask me things that I don't know.
I love this,
or that I can't remember.
Let the record show he's holding it up. It has both Hebrew and English in it, so I could read it. Thankfully,
it's called the Siddur Sim Shalom for weekdays, which is sort of the standard issue prayer book for the conservative movement. So you're like, wait, but you had a Reform upbringing.
Right. So
what are you doing at a conservative show?
This is great, man. This is great. Go.
So there were two sort of events that sort of brought me closer to Judaism. The first one is just going to kind of be a bit of there's so much backstory, just take my word for it. I moved from Helsinki to Mexico City. Just take
Where were you born again?
I was born in Boston.
Okay.
And I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
And then after college, in Wisconsin, I moved to Finland. Long, boring story of why I moved to Finland. I moved to Finland.
Okay.
After 10 years, I moved to Mexico City.
What age are you at the time you're leaving? What are the 10 years of your life, of your age life when you're living in Helsinki?
Basically 22 to 32.
Okay. So at 32, you moved to Mexico City.
Yes.
Okay.
And who do I meet there but a nice Jewish girl?
Yes, of course.
And because the thing is, I had always avoided dating Jewish women because they mainly reminded me of my mother. And I love my mother, but not in that sort of creepy Oedipal way. And and through sheer happenstance, I mean, this was a blind date. Basically, a mutual friend said, "Oh, you're moving to Mexico City. Mexico City, sorry. Mexico City.
That's not bad.
Mexico City. You should call my friend Shuli. She's a real estate agent. Maybe she'll help you find an apartment." And that's who I'm married to now.
Yeah.
So I meet this woman.
Let the record show, she's a lovely person. I've met her.
she is lovely. Hi, Shirley. And so, so I'm living in Mexico, dating a woman named Shulamit Hirsch, born and raised in Mexico.
Wow.
I mean, her father was named Guillermo Hirsch.
Wow.
That's
so wonderful. No, I did know.
Yeah, there are 50,000 Jews in Mexico City.
I did know that was kind of. I learned this at some point, and it was very surprising to me because I've even asked this on the show of Jeff Astroff at one point, that I think that, when you're growing up, from my point of view, you kind of think like, so almost all the Jews, you sort of get this impression that like almost all the Jews none of them were left in Israel. Right. Almost all of them were killed
in
Europe.
Germany?
No.
I mean, none of them were left in Germany.
No. I mean, like,
you mean in Israel? Yeah,
it's almost like you get this sense that they were all kicked out of Israel, then they went to Europe, and then they were all there was an attempt at exterminating all of them, and then they've all come to the United States. It's like, it's sort of this sense. I didn't know much about it as a young man, and as I grew, I began to realize, wow, there's enclaves and everywhere. Communities everywhere, because this is what it means.
India, China, everywhere.
This is what it means to be a people that constantly are on the move.
Apparently, there's still 2 Jews left in Afghanistan, and they can't stand each other, and they won't talk to each other. It's like,
I love the idea.
That's such a stereotypically Jewish thing,
Okay, so you meet Shuli.
So I meet Shuli, and she and her she it was very weird because it's not like you go to Mexico and they're like, oh, you're a fellow Jew. Great. Welcome to the community. They're, no, who are you? Why are you trying to infiltrate our community? It's a very closed community because there was a Jewish community in Mexico because they all had to flee Eastern Europe, as things were getting bad. And the U.S., fun fact about U.S. immigration history, U.S. had a Jewish ban.
Wow.
From,
really?
I don't know the exact dates, but sort of like the mid to late 20s.
Wow.
Until 1945.
Wow.
So the only reason Shuli isn't American is because when her family was fleeing Eastern Europe, the U.S. wasn't letting Jews in, so they went to Mexico.
Man.
I mean, that's how the Latin American community, that's how a lot of them, not the one in Argentina. Argentina is a slightly different story. That's basically how the Jewish community in Mexico came to being. So Shuli made me sort of more aware of my Jewishness, not really on a religious, in a religious sense, but in terms of like, no, this is who you are. You need to identify with that. It was a little weird, but I sort of got a little more used to it. And so I just became a little more aware.
So was she a conservative? Is that part of what happened? Is that you've met this? She was a practicing.
Yes and no.
Jew.
Yes and no. Her father was more religious, and actually they went to an Orthodox shul. But she went to a secular Jewish school, the Yiddish school of Mexico, Yiddish shul in Mexico.
Yeah. Wow.
So she had to take Yiddish and Hebrew, but it was a secular school for Jews. So she had a culturally Jewish upbringing. She understands some of the stuff about religion.
Listen, we have to take a break, but there's a couple things we're going to get back to because this was lovely. This gives a broad perspective. I got history, I got educated, but we got to get back to your dad. We got to figure out why it means something that you left your sort of what you didn't have when you were young that she helped you discover. We're going to get back to that right after the break. See you all in a second. All right, everybody, we're back with Hopper Stone. So Hopper, do you want to get to your dad at this point? Because I feel like I don't understand. It feels like what you're saying is you were shielded a little bit from the Orthodox upbringing when you were younger, and you didn't really have even like a guiding Jewish sort of religious force. Your father really didn't impart that at all to you, and it doesn't sound like your mother really did either. You had the cultural stuff, but you didn't have the religious stuff.
Correct.
And so you didn't have any burden of any of that. You kind of just lived as whatever, an American that has a
just
certain,
happens to be Jewish.
Yeah. And there's no kind of religious identity with it, right?
Not a religious identity in the sense of God and spirituality, and they're like.
Were you interested in the questions when you were younger? I mean, were you doing like other searches or?
Well, searches.
Because we're talking about. I think what's interesting here. I think what I want to get at. I want to make sure I understand, is that most people I talk to have some stronger impression of their first 20 years of life than I feel like you're delivering. I feel like you're sort of saying, Yeah, like there was maybe you suffered some you sort of hinted at being like sort of some prejudice of being Jewish, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, I found it annoying, but I'm like, why are you picking on me for that? Like,
Yeah.
basically, I'm like, why are you picking for that? I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's just you're born Jewish. There's nothing you can sort of do about it.
Right.
You can become a Buddhist, and you're still a Jewish Buddhist.
Yeah. Right.
But I didn't have, or Jubu, as they like to be called.
That is funny. I've never heard that.
But they don't.
That feels very well for like the modern day. Like boo is like a thing that I hear, like your boo. So like Jubu feels like that would really work today.
Yes.
Hashtag Jubu.
Hashtag Jubu. It was something I really didn't pay much attention to. And I would say I'm Jewish, and people would ask me questions. I'm like, I don't know. So Shuli made me more aware of sort of the cultural aspects of being Jewish. And then where it really got to was at the end of 2014, my father, I'm going to say unexpectedly passed away, but it's not that he was young. It's just that, he was 85, which is a perfectly sort of acceptable age to sort of be in that mindset. The thing is that his mother lived to be 97, his grandfather lived to be 98, and he was fine. And then all of a sudden he wasn't fine, and my brother and I flew to Florida, and we had to sort of babysit him for 5 days while we just literally watched him die.
Okay, so time out.
Which is pretty...
How many siblings do you have?
Just one older brother.
One older brother, and are your parents together at this time?
Oh God, no. My parents split up in 1975.
Okay, so and they never remarried?
My father remarried.
And it was his wife still with him?
His wife was
second
still
wife?
with him. Yes, his second wife. They were together longer than my parents were together.
So, and where's your mother? Where does she live?
She passed away actually 2 years ago.
Okay. I'm sorry.
She was
so she's in New York.
Right. She was in New York. My father and my stepmother lived in Florida.
Okay.
And so we fly into Florida and just basically, babysat my dad till he died.
Yeah.
Wow. Which is...
And what did he die of? What happened?
The official diagnosis was cardiomyopathy, but basically he had it was called an aortal valve stenosis, which he left unchecked because he hated doctors, and his last doctor wouldn't treat him anymore because he was too combative, and he wouldn't find another doctor.
Wow.
And he started having these sort of cognitive episodes, and we were sort of wondering about that and trying to do something, and then it turned out that what it was is that the aortal valve stenosis impaired the circulation of oxygenated blood to his brain, which is why you'd get these episodes of dementia.
Wow.
And then it just spiraled very quickly into his heart gave out.
Okay.
So when he died, I was and I had a, shall we say, an interesting relationship with my father. We didn't really become friends until I was older. My father was very wise, but he was described to what I call the Socratic method of child rearing. He was
What does that mean?
was a lawyer. It's like, you want a cookie? Great. defend your cookie. Why should I give you a cookie?
Question after question.
And I'm like, because I'm 6 and I like cookies. And there was a reason I don't have children, and this is going to sound like I'm bashing my father, and I'm not. But one of the characteristics my father had was he simply did not understand children. I literally walked in once. He and my stepmother were babysitting my niece, and she was 1.5, 2 years old. And I walk in, and Margaret, my niece, is sitting on the floor, screaming like a banshee. And my father is in his recliner, going, "What? What do you want? Tell me what you want. If you can't articulate what you want, I can't help you."
Wow.
And I think he was only half kidding.
Wow.
So, and I'm kind of the same way. I just don't understand children until they become real people and you can have a conversation. And my father was very much that way.
Does it make you uncomfortable?
Yes.
Does it make you full of like anxiety being around them? Or is it more like it's not like it's it's discomfort, but it's not.
I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I just remove myself.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's just the way I am. And I didn't. And my father was a good father in that, he prepared me. The Talmud says a parent's job is to prepare your kids to get out into the world. And he was a good father in that sense. And we always had, a roof over our head and money in our pocket and clothes on our back and food on the table. That was never a problem. He was not a warm and fuzzy guy.
Yeah.
We became friends as adults. And his father...
At what age? Like, how old are you? Because your life is like you're so
somewhere in
all
my
over the
30s,
place.
somewhere in my 30s.
Okay, so you're like post Helsinki. You're
Yeah.
living in Mexico City. How long did you live in Mexico City?
2.5 years.
And did you take Shuli back with you then?
No.
Did you guys come back?
Oh God, no.
Okay, so that's a longer
That's
story.
a whole other thing.
So you come back though after
Yeah.
your time in Mexico City when you
Yeah.
fall in love. You come back though to the States.
I came back to the States. Shirley and I had actually
then you-
broken
and
up at
it's
that
so-
point.
oh.
It was a lot of on again, off again, back and forth, like every terrible romantic comedy where they finally end up together.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only been married for 11 and a half years.
Okay.
So
Okay, you come back and you start developing this relationship with your father on a new level.
yeah, he used to have to come out here on business a few times a year, and we sort of get to know each other. And he was not a big phone talker, so we'd only talk on the phone a few times, like maybe every couple of months, but a little bit of email. And he was involved tangentially in the entertainment industry. He was a lawyer, more specifically on the commercial side. So he sat on the Screen Actors Guild, the pension fund board of trustees and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so he used to come out for board meetings, and we were good. We had a good. I learned to stop being upset about the things he was not, and just accept him for who he was.
Yeah.
And I liked who he was, and I just stopped expecting him to be something that he was never going to be. That was a big. I mean, I spent a lot of my 20s having fights with my father in my head.
Yes.
Just in my head.
Well,
never with him, just in my head.
That's a very common thing,
Yes.
right? I mean, the things that incite you in your life, whatever, you look around, you see somebody that reminds you of something, or you have a moment where, that those things can happen all the time. I have those. My wife has those. Everyone I know has those. And that's you trying to but you never had a fight with him directly? You never really took it up directly with him?
Not direct. We had one big falling out when I was probably 30, 31. A big falling out. I was living in Helsinki at the time. I just didn't call. This is before email. I didn't call him for probably 6 months.
Wow.
And about 6 months later, he calls me and goes, "Haven't heard from you in a while."
Okay.
And
Let's
I'm
just
like,
move past it.
just okay. And I just let it go.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask what the subject was surrounded or regarded, or it doesn't have to matter?
What I'm doing with my life.
Yes.
Kind of thing. And he sort of out of nowhere said this really weird shit that I'm like, you don't know me, do you?
Yes.
And it was that sort of stuff.
Hey man, right. You're
Yeah, it
30 or
happens.
whatever. Yeah. These are you're standing up for who you are at that point. And was your brother combative with your father?
No, my brother was very much my father's son, and I was very much my mother's son.
Okay. So you're very and I know we're going to get back to your dad
Yeah.
and the moment in Florida, but I also kind of I find myself wanting more context with. So your mother, they divorced at a very young age.
Yeah, I was 13.
And she never remarries.
Nope.
But you're very close to her.
Yes.
You remain very emotionally close to her for your whole life.
Yeah, I was always my mother. I was always my mother's son.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
That was just the way it was.
Okay.
And even when, said she died a couple of years ago, my brother and I had a very strict division of labor. My brother could, because he lived in New York at the time where my mother lived and I lived out here, I'm the one who could actually talk to her on the phone every day, sometimes for actually quite a while. My mother was a big phone talker. Or when she once had surgery and I flew into New York, and I could sit in her room for 8 hours a day and talk to her. It wasn't always the most comfortable thing, but I could do it. It was like my weird superpower.
Yeah.
My brother, I think, would have rather put an ice pick through his ear. Don't get me wrong, my brother loved my mother.
Sure.
And it was close in his own way, but it was just, but on the other hand, he could take her to the hospital. He could deal with doctors. We had a very strict division of labor. And my division of labor was I could just deal with my mother.
Yeah.
Because she was a character. There was stuff to deal with her.
Yeah. Okay. So you in 2014 this tragic surprise.
Yeah. And in 2014, my dad dies, and by the Jewish ritual is, you bury quickly. You're supposed to bury within 24 hours. So basically, within an hour of him dying, my brother and I are at the hospice facility, and we see a van pull up, and out comes the stretcher with the body on it, and he's being flown up to Massachusetts, and we got to get our shit together and fly up to Massachusetts, and we got him buried within 2 days.
Wow.
But then the whole mourning ritual started. Mourning, M-O-U-R.
Yes.
Mourning ritual starts. So the Jewish mourning ritual is divided into, depending on who dies, generally 3 parts. And everybody's heard of sitting Shiva, which is, it literally means seven. Shiva means seven. So you mourn for 7 days. And
what does that mean? Like, what shouldn't you be doing while you're mourning?
pretty much anything.
Right. Is it kind of like doing Shabbat for 7 days, sort of? Like, you shouldn't get on your phone, you shouldn't be leaving, you should just be staying in your
even
home?
more. Like, you stay at home, you cover the mirrors, you take all the pictures off the wall, you're not supposed to wear leather. Like, there's all this weird shit that you're like, and people come and they visit. And you're not required to even acknowledge anybody who comes in the room. You're just there to just mourn, and that's it. So, but before
you could acknowledge, but you could also.
But you don't have to.
You don't have to.
You're actually supposed to be served. You are not supposed to get anything for yourself. So the thing is that, and this is what I sort of learned from my wife, and how this gets into it is that what I learned from my wife is do your best. And when you die, and if there is a heaven, and if there's a God, he'll tell you what you missed. But, don't be a dick, do your best. But that's the great thing about being Jewish, is that there isn't this fear of, if you do things wrong, you will burn in hell for, eternal damnation.
Right.
There isn't. It's like, this is what we do. And the great catchword in Judaism is, in my community. Well, in my community, we do things this way. Oh, but in my community, we do things this way. It's fine, as long as you're doing something.
Yeah.
So we buried my father in Massachusetts, which is where he was originally from. We actually have a family plot. My great-grandfather got a deal on a plot during the Depression. I shit you not.
Amazing.
So we actually have a family plot. and I was devastated. I was just shaken up, because this is my first really serious death in the family.
Sure.
And the rabbi in Needham, Massachusetts, where we buried him, was really a wonderful guy, and he didn't know us. He was the sort of I think my uncle sort of arranged the funeral arrangements and all of that, and that was the synagogue we went to. And I didn't know the guy, and he was really wonderful. He was very comforting, and he gave me a book called Saying Kaddish. And it's about the Jewish mourning ritual and grieving in a Jewish way. And before I get into details of what it is, what I liked about it, and this was what was very appealing to me, is that in the midst of all of this, and you don't know what to do, the ritual of saying Kaddish it's a ritual with a set of things you're supposed to do and a timetable. And then when you're done, you're done. And you are not only encouraged, you're required to put your mourning and your grief in a certain place and get back out into the world. And it's okay to laugh at a joke. It's okay to enjoy yourself. It's okay to live your life, not forgetting about your parent, because you've honored them and you continue to honor them in your own way, but it's okay to just sort of stop grieving. And that was very appealing to me. So the ritual of saying Kaddish it's 30 days for a sibling, a friend, or a spouse. For a parent, or God forbid, a child.
Of course. My goodness.
Dude, a friend of mine's kid just died. It's it's awful.
I can't imagine.
Unexpectedly,
it's
too.
Horrible.
11 months. It's 12 months, but it's 11 months if this was a righteous person, and who are we to decide who is righteous? So it's 11 months. And so the first 7 days is Shiva, which is like the heavy mourning. You stay at home, and again, you can do things sort of in your own way. These days, some people do it in 3 days, some people don't do it at all. It's whatever you choose to make it to be. So I did it, basically.
So I'm sorry, I have to ask something.
Yeah.
It's 30 days for an adult.
Yes.
Did you say it's
11 months?
11 months
for a parent, or God forbid, child.
Okay.
It's divided into 3 parts. First is Shiva, which is the 7 days. And that's typically where people come around and they bring you food, and you're supposed to go to what is called minyan twice a day. A minyan is a quorum of Jews. Traditionally, it's supposed to be 10 men who have been bar mitzvahed. Sometimes it's 10 Jews. Some people count women. Some don't. So
Sometimes it's not 10.
It really is.
It has to be 10.
It's supposed to be 10.
And that's happening every day.
And it's twice a day you're supposed to do it. Wow. I did my version of, I would go in the mornings. And some people do it actually at the Shiva house. It's referred to as a Shiva minyan, where it's considered a good deed to actually go to Shiva just to be there in case they need a 10th.
Yeah, wow.
And I've done that. A friend of mine's mother died a few weeks ago, and I showed up and I was number 10.
Wow.
So there's that. And then there's the Shloshim, which is 30 days, during which you're allowed to sort of get out of the house and you can wear leather again and you can sort of slowly get back to your life. But you're not supposed to groom. Like, so for example, you don't shave, you don't get a haircut, you don't cut your fingernails have you ever not cut your fingernails for 30 days?
No.
It's fucking awful. I mean, by the time I was getting around to, 20 days, I would shake people's hand. I go, I'm very sorry. It's a Jewish thing. Don't, pay it,
Wow.
And so when 30 days came around, I mean, I went to a barber and I had a hot shave.
Wow.
And I got a manicure. And it was a day when I could stop thinking about my dead dad. And then the rest of the time, I would
go.
The
next 10 months.
Yeah, I would go. I went to Minyan in the mornings, Monday through Friday, if I wasn't working. That was my version of saying Kaddish. If you do it in the full-blown religious way, it is twice a day, no going out, no socializing, no dancing, no music. Like, you can't go out to dinner, you can't go to the movies. No, I mean, it's hardcore for 11 months. And the idea and the idea is like, you mourn hardcore, and then when you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
And what I like, the thing I like about Minyan is that there's a prayer for the dead you say called the Mourner's Kaddish, and you can only say it in a Minyan. Can't say it alone. Just not allowed to. Wow. I mean, is God going to strike you down? No, of course not. But the idea is that it forces you to be out amongst people.
Yes.
So and to not just wallow all the time. And again, I the first time I went to Minyan, I show up to this place, Temple Beth Am on La Cienega, because I literally Googled Minyan near me. And that's what came up. It turns out it's the longest running lay Minyan in Los Angeles, going for 30 years.
Wow.
And of course, they see a new face, and I explained. I said, look, I don't really know what I'm doing, but my father died. And they ask all these questions. Where are you? And and I said, well, today's actually my 7th day of Shiva. And so, I get a little choked up at this. No. I'll never forget. Like, I went to Minyan for the first time, and at the end of it, everybody came and gathered around me, and the rabbi, Adam Klingfeld, wonderful guy, Adam, came and said this sort of, these words of comfort that they say to the people in mourning, and then officially told me to get up. Wow. And then what you do is when you're done with Shiva, those 7 days, you're supposed to go and take a walk around the block. And this group of strangers that I'd never met went and walked me around the block. And I will never forget that it's a community thing. And so these were my Minyan buddies. I went
and that's just have a reintroduction to the world.
Yes,
again.
Get back out into the world. Wow. And so I started going Monday through Friday in the mornings, and really eclectic group of people. Josh Molina's dad goes there, and that sort of stuff. Wow. And it's an interesting group of people, and they found me amusing because I made no secret of the fact that I'm not particularly religious, and I don't keep kosher, and I refuse to go to shul on Shabbos because that is my day of rest.
Yeah,
I absolutely refuse to go to shul on Shabbos. Like, that's my day off. If I'm going Monday through Friday, nope, Saturday's my day off. Yeah. And I remember asking one of the guys there, I said, I just want to make sure that people don't think I'm making fun of them. But so what's the I don't believe in God. I don't keep kosher. I don't go to shul on Shabbos. And he says, let me tell you a story. I don't remember the name of the Jewish writer. It wasn't Philip Roth, but it was someone like that who would go to Minyan every morning. And his son goes, Dad, what are you doing? Why do you go to Minyan every morning? You don't believe in God. You don't keep kosher. You don't go to shul on Shabbos. Why do you do this? And he goes, everybody's got a different reason for going. Look at Ginsburg over there. Ginsburg goes to Minyan because he likes to talk to God. I like to go to Minyan because I like to talk to Ginsburg.
Okay, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
We're going to take our break, and we'll be right back for our I Can't Believe It Already. It's our last segment.
Wow.
I'll see you after the break. right, we're back with Hopper Stone. It's our last segment. And you wanted to finish, you want to jump off on another thought about what you were just finishing up about Minion, about community.
Yeah, so what it really, the thing about Judaism, people always ask me like, well, is it a religion? Is it a culture? Is it a race? Is it a people? And the answer is yes. So, and I remember asking my father when I was younger, because my father's brother, my Uncle Harris, has always been a little more devout. Like he can speed read Hebrew. He knows all the rituals. And I always ask my dad, I'm like, well, you had the same upbringing. What's the difference? And he said, well, Harris always had faith, and I don't. And that was like a light bulb went off in my head. Because what it really comes down to is I can't get my head around faith. I envy people. I actually do. And I know you're not supposed to envy people, but I envy people who have faith.
Yeah, that's
who can
really
just
fascinating.
Believe in God.
Why? Why do you envy?
Because there's a pillar that they have, and they don't question everything. I question everything.
Where in your life are the questions detrimental to you, do you think?
They're not detrimental, but if I'm gonna, it's just weird being a faithless Jew. Like
it makes you uncomfortable around other Jews. You sort of expressed this a little bit with Minion. You felt like I don't want to feel like I'm coming across. Your words were like, I don't want to feel like I'm making fun of them or disrespecting them.
Yeah, it makes me a little uncomfortable around Jews who do have faith. But then again, that's the nice thing about the conservative movement. Like, I really like the conservative movement because they're like, close enough. As long as you're here, close enough. And you get into interesting discussions. And I mean, I've spoken to the rabbis and the people there, and they don't really care that I don't believe in God. So when I have discussions with them, and even when I read the prayer book, the Siddur, I treat God sort of as an intellectual exercise. Like, okay, well, if there was a God, and if this God that we're allegedly praying to, and that we're asking from these things, I guess, okay, this would be, the thing. But I mean, gun to my head, do I believe in God? I'd have to say no. I know saying you're agnostic is really wishy-washy, but
Yeah, well, you and I were talking about this. Like, I think I'm not sure I've explored to be honest. I'm not sure I've explored enough to truly say I understand the breadth of maybe what a true agnostic, like a very thoughtful agnostic, would, where they draw the lines. Mm-hmm. But as you and I were talking about before the show, I just have found that it seems wishy-washy is a sort of negative way to say it, but it just feels like it leaves open a door to multiple things where I'm not sure why I need to leave open a door. If I've already gone outside of believing in a God, why then am I saying that, why do I have to say maybe there's a God? Why do I have to make my belief that maybe there's a God or maybe there's not? Like, why is that comforting to me? I'm not intellectually, I don't understand that necessarily.
I'll tell you that because I think it takes just as much faith to say, I know there isn't a God as it does to say, I know that there is.
Yeah. See,
that's also a
true.
tremendous amount of faith
to
say, I know there isn't one. I don't know.
Right.
That's just it. The answer is, I don't know.
Right.
And that's the literal definition of faith, is to not know and to just believe.
Yeah, I've always, no. I like that. I feel like, I guess the way I've sort of come into, atheism is to be a non-theist. It's not to say that, like, much of that is it's anti-God, but most of it is often anti-religion.
Absolutely.
And so then you start getting into splitting hairs about like what the word God means or how you interpret things that are spiritual or divine in your life without using the word God, which is very, loaded.
Right.
So no, I mean, I think this is good. I think what I'm expressing is that personally, I probably need to explore more about what the definitions of living in an agnostic sense would be, or how you categorize yourself as agnostic. But right now, it feels like what it does is I think for me, coming out of my history, is I don't feel like it allows me enough of a criticism of I feel like it's kind of acritical also, is
Yeah.
part of what it is.
It's totally acritical.
And I'm not sure that's something I'm comfortable with at the moment, but that's just me.
Oh, I'm super comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's what I like about it personally is I can just sort of get on with my. I mean, basically, when I talk to people who do believe in the God, and they go, "Well, what guides you?" And I'm like, not being a dick guides me.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Like, I don't need God to tell me not to be a dick.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My parents raised me right, and I like to think that I'm sort of a critical thinker. But since these are things that, like, since is there a God, is there not a God, is truly unanswerable. Mm-hmm. I just stopped trying to answer it.
Yeah. I think
that's really what it comes down to.
I guess I feel like that. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this, but I do feel like there's something that the circles cross over each other with atheism and agnosticism in ways that I feel like sometimes that same comment is atheistic. And I'm not sure, because I think atheism can be defined, as we've talked about, by like the heavy hitting, like Christopher Hitchens.
Right,
of the
they're
world.
the militant atheists.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
But then there's other versions of atheism where I feel like there's a divinity that's acknowledged, and divinity is almost too much, but a wonder, right? The wonder is something that's easy for anybody to sort of acknowledge. And in that you can acknowledge. There, I'm very comfortable saying, I don't need to define, and I'll agree that you can believe in wonder. But agnosticism goes as far as to say that Jesus may be the Son of God, right? Agnosticism goes to say, God may exist, Jesus may be the Son of God, could be reincarnation, could be all those things.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of stepping outside. And atheism goes a step further.
Could
to
be
say,
that the Hindus are right. I don't know.
Right. Okay, so that's good. I think that's what I'm getting around, and that's where we're talking about boundaries with those two things. And I'm not sure if I'm comfortable there right now, but I don't know.
That's a good agnostic answer.
Yeah, well, there you go. So there's something I wanted to get back to about your dad. So you talk about your dad being such a impressionable moment, right? Mm-hmm. This is a huge catalyst for you to embrace Kaddish, to embrace what led you to all these beautiful ways back into the community, is this tragic event of losing your dad.
Mm-hmm. Which is the way a lot of people get back into Judaism. I found.
Yeah.
A lot of people started like, a parent died and I needed to do something.
Yeah.
And it helped that my wife, my wife was comfortable in a Jewish household. Like she would do things I didn't even think of that just make you feel better. Like she would cover the mirrors, and she had more of an upbringing of how to do these things, and it just makes me feel I wasn't alone, which is nice. So actually, when my mother died, my Shuli, my wife, was actually out of town. She was in Israel visiting her kids, so I was really alone. So, but at least I had a little bit of experience, so I could do it.
So you did it all again, right, for your mother?
Did it all again.
Wow.
But I mean, and the thing again, the nice thing about Minyan was, look, when my mom died, she was sick. She was super sick. It was that mixture of relief and sadness. So we buried my mom. My brother and I had to empty out her place in New York, and then I came back here, and I'll be honest, for a solid month, I'd get up in the morning. I'd get up in the morning, I went to Orange Theory Fitness, and then I would go to Minyan, and then I would smoke pot and watch TV. And I did that for a solid month. And it was kind of awesome. I mean, I knew this was not a
Let your fingernails grow again.
I did the whole thing. Let my fingernails grow, didn't shave, did all that sort of stuff. But I basically smoked pot and watched TV for a month. But if I didn't have this thing of, I have to get up and go to Minyan, I probably wouldn't have showered or brushed my teeth for a month either. It's like, no, I have to at least get out, go, be amongst the community. Some people will come for me, have this ritual and this timetable and this schedule. And there's a sound to the chanting and the prayers. And there's a whole ritual. You put on a prayer shawl and you wrap these leather straps around your arm and one on your head. And I mean, it does look very culty and weird.
Yeah.
But it's this thing that you do. And it's funny, we laughingly refer to it as getting dressed. And then I could do whatever I want. And then I could go home and I could wallow. But at least every morning I had to set an alarm, get up, shower, brush my teeth, and go to Minyan.
You didn't work. You stepped outside all that stuff. Did you
I
cancel
wouldn't
work then at that?
No,
I mean, do you have
no,
to?
no. I knew I had a job starting.
Right.
I actually knew I had a job starting 2 months later. No. So I spent a month doing that, and I'm like, well, I can do this for another month. But instead, I went to Israel and visited my wife and her kids and new grandkids and all that stuff.
Right. And then 10 more months of going to Minyan.
What?
Or
Monday through
Friday
Friday if I wasn't working. But for example, and this is the nice thing, is that like I did a movie in Budapest, and I happened to have a morning off, because the largest synagogue in Europe is in Budapest, so I went to Minyan in Budapest, and they're like, "Who are you?" And I explained that I was saying Kaddish for my mother, and of course the prayer book was in Hungarian and Hebrew, so it was very hard to follow. But one guy very kindly sort of told me, help me along. And you can go anywhere in the world, you can find a Minyan. I think there's actually an app where you can find a Minyan anywhere in the world if you need it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that it's part of the culture, the religious part of the Jewish culture that for those that understand and still participate in the religious culture, that they're wherever this is like a service that all Jews are ready to provide for other Jews, is that I will be one of those 10 for you if you need someone right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an amazing gift that is just like a sort of open. It's an amazing place for communion among strangers. Yeah.
And because we are a diaspora, there is no, after the Second Temple is destroyed, we are a diaspora, the entire religion. There is
spread
no
all
Vatican.
Over the world. That's right.
We're everywhere. There is no main temple.
Right.
We're everywhere. And you'll see Minyans in airports. You'll see, anywhere. It has to be at a certain time. It does not have to be in a certain place.
So we only have some time left. We have enough to ask, but one of the things I wanted to ask is did you find that your mourning was active in that? So I understand that you could, I imagine you could take on you could do the rituals of this and sort of just take on a facade of mourning, right? Mm-hmm. You're watching TV or smoking pot or whatever. But you're also probably meant to be actively mourning. And I'm wondering, did you find yourself during those times really reflecting on your relationship with your father? Or did you find certain thoughts that through the experience of performing the ritual, did you find yourself going deeper into understanding what those relationships were? And did you put things to bed so that, when you woke up out of it 11 months later, you really had actually done a deep, the ritual had, because people talk, like, is it the emotion that brings you to the ritual, or is it the ritual that can bring you to the emotion? It works both ways, right?
It works both ways.
And so for you, you're performing the ritual, and what you're probably experiencing is a psychological or emotional thing that you weren't quite aware of. Like, oh, I'm going to have 30 days to sit and think about this.
Absolutely.
Did you find yourself actively engaging? Did you find yourself pushing it away?
No.
Did you find it coming up at times?
Oh, no. I actively mourn because this is my 11 months to mourn.
Right.
This is it. Because once you're done, you're supposed to be done. And actually, it's kind of sad when you're done. A lot of people get very sad. Like, they don't want to stop saying Kaddish.
Right.
Because you're mourning. And also, because the person you're praying for is or mourning is kind of alive to you as you're mourning. Exactly.
Right.
And then, but then you go to Minyan, what's referred to as Yartzeit, which is the yearly anniversary. So I still go to Minyan on Yartzeit.
Okay.
And there are actually 4 services.
The anniversary of the day they died.
Of the day they died.
Okay.
By the Jewish calendar, so it varies every year. There are certain services throughout the year that are called Yitzkor services, where you remember the dead and you're supposed to give. And also, the Jews were big on giving charity. You're supposed to give charity in the dead's name and all of that. But what it does is it helped me put everything in a place. It let me, actively mourn. Because look, you never stop. I mean, I think about my parents every day, but it's in a place, and I feel like I've done some. I feel like I did some work towards mourning. Like I'm in touch with a photographer I know in New York whose father passed away a few months ago, and he's still just really struggling with it. And I feel bad. I mean, Jews don't do everything right, but one thing we do really well is death.
So I love that in the sense that it sounds like you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hearing this, it is, I got to say, very compelling.
And
There's something.
I found it very therapeutic.
Yeah, it sounds that way.
Yeah. And I was ready to be done, and I was ready to kind of live my life.
Right.
And I didn't feel like I was disrespecting anything.
Right. I like that somebody places a time period. This is how you do it.
Yes.
Because this is the big question. When do you let go? You guys have designed, the culture and the religio culture of Judaism has designed, it should be about a year.
Yeah.
You get 1 year of really doing it and then move on.
Right. You don't move on, you just put it in its place. Because,
Good.
honor thy mother and father.
Yes.
Right? Is that not like first command or
Yeah,
whatever commandment
absolutely.
it is?
Yeah. It's not the first, but yeah.
Somewhere in that first five. And
I don't think it's the first. Oh God!
No, it's not the first.
It's on no God before me. Right?
First one's no God before me, but it's in the first five.
Yeah.
First five are how to behave, and the second five are things you're not supposed to do.
Right,
I don't know if you ever noticed that.
Say that again.
The first five are the way you're supposed to behave, and the second five are things you're not supposed to do.
Oh, that's good. I'm not sure I've ever heard it broken down like that. That's great.
It is that kind of that.
Yeah, that's good. So we only have a couple of minutes left. I'm sorry. Did you have a? I wanted. No. We only have a couple minutes left. Do you have you found yourself embracing an afterlife in a way through this experience that maybe you would have never kind of like allowed yourself to sort of believe in before? There's the way we live with the memories of the people that have died. I would, a little knock on wood there for sound. But my grandmother, both my parents, thankfully, but my grandmother, the one I was close to, is gone. And I think of her, and it's hard for me to even believe sometimes that she's gone, right? This is the nature of death. Like, it's hard to even believe they're not there. They feel so alive in my brain. Do you feel that they live beyond, and this is obviously our kind of going away question here, but do you feel like you have a deeper connection, or is somewhat like the afterlife is somewhat closer to you through this experience than it would have been before? Or?
I don't know about an afterlife because I'm not sure I believe in one, but I do sort of allow myself, well, if there is one, then yes, I'm doing this for my mother, or my father would be laughing right now. Like there's this closely guarded family recipe of a type of cookie that my mother used to make that actually her mother, taught to her. And it's like, and even to this day, like I couldn't imagine giving that recipe to anybody. And, my brother and his girlfriend had a 4th of July dessert party. So I made these cookies, and I gave the recipe, to my brother. I'm like, just in case you don't have it, because it can stay in the family. That's fine, but no one else gets it. So like little things like that, like I'll do something like, I could have made anything, but I made these particularly, for my mom. Kind of thing. Or I'll do something and I'll think my dad would get a kick out of this. Or every so often I will find myself just kind of looking up. I don't know if I believe it or not, but it makes me feel better.
Yes.
So I do it.
I get that. And you're not the first person to talk about that.
And that is one of the great things about being Jewish. It's a very sort of like, here's a bunch of rules. Do the best you can, but mainly just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Hopper,
I don't feel like I asked more than 5 questions. I feel like you came in and you had this lovely story to tell. It was really beautiful. I learned a lot. I find it very compelling to have a structure for this type of mourning. I'm going to think about that more in my life, as, I'm thankful that, again, that most of the people very close to me are still alive, but there's something really compelling about it.
And the things, my parents died like sort of at the ages they should. I mean, I've been very fortunate that I've never had like that sort of kick you in the nuts grief that you're not supposed to have, like, a child, a sibling too young, or even a spouse, too young. Like, it's all. And the thing is, though, is that I was at that age, like my parents died. Oh, by the way, my father-in-law died 3 weeks before my mother. And my stepmother died 2 months before my father-in-law. Like, it was called the cavalcade of death. And then, people in my age group, everyone else, like, oh, my father died, my mother died. It's just, it comes in this wave. And no one prepares you for that. There's going to be a period in your life, I hate to tell you, where, like, your parents, let's say, are going to go at the age they're supposed to go. And all of your friends at the same, like all within, a couple of years. And it's tough. No one prepares you for that. And I've just found that what's nice in the Jewish, look, a friend of mine's mom just passed away. Again, at the age she was supposed to pass away, but you know what you're supposed to do. You know what you're supposed to say. You know where you're supposed to go. You just know these things. And because this is the other thing I learned, and this is, again, the nice thing about having prayers and a ritual and all that when someone close to you dies, there is nothing anybody can say.
Right.
Like if someone says, like when my dad died, if someone said, oh, my father died too, I know how you feel. I'm like, no, you don't. Because there is nothing more personal than the death of a parent. And everybody's relationship with a parent is unique. And no one knows how I feel, and I don't know how anybody else feels. And that's generally what I have learned to say when someone announces that a parent or relative has died. I just simply say, there are no words. And then may their memory be a blessing, which is a very typical sort of Jewish thing to say. It's just
and it seems like this ritual gives a comfort to both sides.
Yes.
To the people that come to comfort and the people that are there that need to be comforted.
Yeah.
Both people know how to perform and act in a totally impossibly solvable situation.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we have to say goodbye, man.
Oh,
but I mean,
man.
this has been really beautiful. I mean, I really love it. And thank you for coming in and going deep on this reflection, man. I really appreciate it. And
thanks for having me, man. This was really, really fun.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
All right. And thank you all for listening.